Hey guys, we're moving on to chapter 17 today, which takes the focus of evolution and the processes into specific populations and how those populations are affected over time through mutations and natural variation. So hopefully you have one of your note sheets for Cornell notes, and we'll get going. Okay, so genes and variation. Biologists study evolution. They often focus on a particular population to study the changes that occur over time. So a population is a group of individuals of the same species living in a given area together. And then because all the members of a population can interbreed, they all share a common group of genes, which we call a gene pool. So the specific definition for gene pool would be the combined genetic information of all the members of a particular population. Sources of genetic variation, there are two main types. Mutations that occur randomly, so that is any change in the sequence of DNA. And then there's also gene shuffling that occurs as a result from sexual reproduction. And we talked about that when we went through meiosis and the process of crossing over. There are single gene and polygenic traits. Single gene traits are genes that are only controlled by a gene that has two alleles. And widow's peak would be an example of that. And as you can see in the graph here, you either have a widow's peak or no widow's peak. So that would be a single gene trait. And it's important to remember that the number of phenotypes produced for a given trait do depend on how many genes control that trait. If you have a polygenic trait, this is a trait that is controlled by two or more genes. So here in this graph we have height in humans. And the phenotype, height, as you can see, increases or goes up over time. You hit a peak, and then it can also go down. And notice the frequency of the phenotype is also going up, indicating that it is changing. So in this case we have a wide range of height. We don't just have short, tall, medium. There are intermediate types along the way. Okay. Alright, evolution as genetic change. We do know that natural selection can act on traits and can lead to some of them having a lower frequency, or some of them having higher frequencies, or some disappearing completely. So natural selection can lead to changes in the frequency of alleles, which will lead us to what evolution is, change over time in a particular species, in a particular population. There is an example in your textbook that is worth looking at. It's on page 488, and it's about a certain type of lizard. The normal color of that lizard is brown, but a mutation will give you red and black mutations at times. The black lizard is usually able to absorb heat faster, and therefore its body temperature goes up more quickly. It's able to react and catch food or get away from predators more quickly. Therefore, it has a higher level of fitness. And over time, black may become the normal allele in that gene pool for that population of black lizards in that area. So page 488 in our textbook will go into more detail about that and show you some pictures. Alright, now if we are talking about a gene, or traits that are controlled by more than one gene, again, that is a polygenic trait. That prefix poly means many. The effects of natural selection are actually more complex. And there are varying characteristics in three different ways that natural selection can take effect on a polygenic trait. They are directional selection, they are stabilizing selection, and disruptive selection. And you're going to be able to see these three graphically. Alright, so directional selection occurs when individuals at one end of the curve have a higher fitness than individuals in the middle or at the end. So in this case with bird beaks and finches, you have the number of birds in the population here as your DV, the beak size as your IV. And notice as food becomes scarce, the peak shifts. So average beak size increases. And so you have your original graph here, your original peak here, and as time goes by you're seeing beak size get larger and shift to the right. Okay, And the key up here says low mortality, high fitness, high mortality, low fitness. So smaller beak sizes are not as fit as the higher beak sizes, and so this yellow area here is what is actually the peak over here now. So that is directional selection, when you just have a shift in that peak. Here's another example of directional selection with giraffes, long neck versus short neck over time. In the past, the long neck giraffes didn't do as well, but present they do. So you can see the short neck peak is exactly the opposite. So one for the other basically as time has went on for the giraffes. Alright, now stabilizing selection. This occurs when individuals near the center or in the middle of the curve have a higher fitness than individuals at either end. So again, notice the key. You have low mortality, high fitness here in the middle. So it means low death, lots of reproduction in the middle. High mortality, low fitness is on the ends. And in this case, they're using an example of birth weight and percentage of population. So having low and high birth weight is not advantageous, right? It has high death rates, low fitness. But in the middle, an average birth weight, which makes sense to us, there is a high level of fitness and a high survival rate. And here's an example of stabilizing selection. Average form of a phenotypic trait is favored, so apparently this medium-sized rat is more fit for its environment than the small or the very large rat. Alright, and lastly we have disruptive selection. This occurs when individuals at the upper and lower end of the curve have a higher fitness than individuals near the middle. So this is almost the exact opposite of stabilizing, where the extremes or the ends, as you can see again, the key, low mortality, high fitness at the yellow, high mortality, low fitness in the middle. So the population actually splits into two subgroups specializing in different seeds because we are looking at another bird beak type situation. So this is what the curve ends up looking like for the disruptive selection. Those extremes are going to start to peak. And here is a case of that with a certain type of caterpillar. Okay, and this one mimics poisonous species, and this one mimics a bad tasting species by the way that it looks. The middle one does not. So these two predators are probably going to avoid because, for one, they don't want to be poisoned. For two, they don't want a bad taste, right, in their food, just like we don't want to eat food that tastes bad. So this is the one that's being preyed on more. Therefore, it has a low level of fitness, and these two will keep on producing and having a high level of fitness. Okay, we are going to stop with genetic drift, and we're going to pick up on that in the next video. Have a good day, and again, as always, feel free to go back in the video and watch areas again or pause as needed, and have a good day.